nothing compares to the woman who's speaking today. She is one of my favorite speakers. I know I say this each and every month, guys. I mean, absolutely mean this. Lynn is well, before we get there, all right, first off, guys, it's August 10th, 2021. Do you know where your business is? Do you know where your business is? If you take what you hear each and every morning and you go off into the marketplace with the knowledge that you gain each and every day here, I'm telling you, you do know where your business is and you know where it's headed. But without any further, I'll tell you, is one of my absolute favorites. But I'll tell you, this prayer warrior moves mountains when she speaks. And you're going to know it here in just a minute. She's a mother. She's a grandmother. She's a friend to all. But I'll tell you, she's God first, family, and business. She's an author. She has been a auctioneer, a number of things. Anyways, let's go to Miss Lynn Gardner this morning. Good morning, Lynn. How are you doing this morning?
Well, good morning, Wade. I'm doing great. That beautiful, humbling introduction. Once again, you always get to me. So good morning to you, my friend. Good morning, DJ. Good morning, Sam. And good morning to the rest of you difference makers out there. Thank you, DJ, for that wonderful reading this morning. And, of course, thank you, Wade, for all that you do. But I love that message, multiply your value. And, remember, guys, that in the beginning, God told Adam and Eve to go forth and multiply, and he wasn't just talking about babies, okay? We're supposed to, called to multiply every good thing, including your value. It's so good to be back with you guys all this morning. As Wade was, mentioning again, my goodness, it's the 8th month of 2021. It's hard to believe. We're going to turn around twice, and before you know it, we're going to be wishing each other Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Whew, I can't even believe it. They say that time flies when you're having fun, but the truth is that time flies whether you're having fun or not. So no matter in life, no matter how old you are, how young you are, how successful you are or not, or anything else in between, let me tell you something. It's time to get serious about your time and what you're doing with it. I believe most people already had a problem, trying to manage their time. There was confusion and distraction and, prioritizing that sort of thing. But COVID-19 took that all to an entirely different level for all of us. Some people are still numb, and they've never found their place or their peace in life again in the midst of all this drama. Some people have lost hope. Sadly, many of them don't even see that, but it shows in how they speak and how they run their lives, right? Others are moving forward one step at a time, confident that things will be getting better soon, and that somehow America is going to push that rewind button and we'll have all the wonderful things we used to have. I hope they're right, but what if they're not? So do you know how to battle? Wherever you are, there's no sign that you need a little positive push this morning, maybe some steel-toe boots, perhaps a little wake-up call, and that's what I'm here for, and perhaps just a little insight to what's going on and how you may have reacted so far, maybe how you should react moving forward. So I'm going to drive that truth home by way of this message coming from the best-selling, and the message is entitled David or Goliath. Everybody knows the story of David and Goliath, the young boy who killed the giant with just one stone and a slingshot. Everybody knows that. But there's a whole lot more to the story than that. So if you're like most people, you might just see yourself in one or both of these characters or some similarities in where you are today in this dark world and how you should be doing battle for your relationships, for your children, in your journey of faith, and definitely in your business. Now, before we wrap it up this morning, that's my prayer. First of all, the battle between the Israelites and the Philistines seems to have gone on forever. In many ways, it still is, right? Old Testament, you pick the Bible up, you're reading about the battle between the Israelites and the Philistines. So obviously, they were at war at the time of David and Goliath. And they were divided by their belief system in every way. They were fighting for their land and fighting for their rights. And that ought to sound familiar to you today. At this particular time, the valley of Elah, they had the Israelites on one side on a mountain and the Philistines on the other side on a mountain and a valley in between. Again, that's pretty familiar for what you see today. One belief system and on one mountain and the other on the other mountain, and a very very wide valley separating the two in our country. Goliath comes forward with a challenge in the midst of this, stand on a mountain, beating his chest like any good bully does. He's attempting to negotiate the terms of the battle, and the Israelites fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. All he did was one huff and puff, from this big bully, and God's people fell trapped. That sounds familiar in today's world, too. You see a little huffing and puffing, big bullies, and everybody starts scurrying like rats. There's not a bully anywhere who has the power to overtake you if you stand in the will of God. So why are so many people cowering down, just the way the Israelites did, as if they have no choice? So anyway, down into that valley of Elah, and he announces that he'll fight the very best they have. And whoever wins, whatever side wins, the other will be servants to the winner. And on the surface, it sounds like they should have jumped on it, right? Wow, there's a battle going on forever, one little fight, and we can be done with it, right? But they were terrified, and they were consumed by fear all the way up to King Saul. It's interesting. They didn't refuse the offer. They didn't think twice about it. They said, okay, that big bully said this, so I guess that's what we got to do, very much like we're doing today. They didn't inquire of God. They just reacted as if they had no choice at all because they were up against a big battle. They didn't attempt to negotiate anything. They didn't say, no thanks, we'd rather fight to win the war. They took their enemy's word for it, along with his scary threats, and they began to shake in their boots, again, including King Saul. So what does Saul, the leader, do? Well, he runs off like a wussy. Can't find him. All of a sudden, he's got things to do, and, you can't find him. Well, he was supposed to be there at the time of war. The king, or otherwise known as the commander-in-chief, was supposed to be right there with the troops. And you would think that based on this situation, David would have learned better, from King Saul, because David got himself in a world of hurt when he left the battlehouse and found a woman, right? So they're supposed to be there. As a leader in your home and in your business, don't you ever hide your head in the sand or succumb to fear, because the stakes are far too high. One of the reasons Saul took off, for 40 days, by the way, is that he would have been the most likely choice to fight. Here he is, the leader, number one, but he was also known to be, the Bible says he was head and shoulders taller than the tallest in their army. So he would have been the most likely choice, and that wussy took off, so he couldn't be called upon, right? Based on that account, don't ever be surprised when the most likely candidate to stand up and fight for you or your religious freedoms or for this country dismisses himself out of fear instead of fighting like a champion. So here we are. We got this big bully. By the way, Goliath was almost 10 feet tall based on biblical accounts. That's a huge man, right? Then I'm sure he wasn't tall and skinny. He was loaded with a custom armor that rated to have weighed 150 to 200 pounds alone. So you can only imagine how big he was. The entire Israel army is paralyzed with fear. For 40 days, that bully threatened everybody. They stood on a mountain shaking in their boots. And for 40 days, they just kept trembling and didn't make a move. In fact, he did that twice a day for morning and evening. Goliath, that champion of the Philistines, come out between the lines and challenges the Israelites to send out a champion of their own to decide the outcome in a single combat. But they froze. What kind of army is that? Well, it's certainly not the Lord's army, right? What kind of army is that? Frankly, it looks a lot like God looks today, pretty wussied out here, and that's not standing up strong, not being confident in God's will. If you don't remember anything from this lesson today, remember this. Your enemy is always disguised as a big bully. He always looks that way. Your enemy will always shout out or whisper, in the crevices of your mind, things that will bring fear to you, because you know why? When you're fearful, you don't take action. But your enemy has no power that God Almighty hasn't given it. You and I have an enemy. We always have had an enemy. It's just more apparent these days. Our spiritual war is so oppressive you can almost cut it with a knife. But you know what? Size doesn't matter. Shouts don't matter. Threats don't matter. And tactics don't matter. If we let fear prevail, we lose. That's the bottom line. And if we stand tall, no matter how tall or how short we are, we will always swim. Listen, your thought life does not depend on circumstances. You can't be, consumed by the circumstances. at what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it. Remember what the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So if you're thinking defeat, if you're thinking scary things, if you're thinking, that you've got a Goliath right in your face, you need to do something about that and determine, to do better. Or, that we read in the Bible, finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, it's not against the Goliaths, right? But against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual force in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on your full armor of God, just like Goliath had on, right? So that when the day of evil comes, you can stand your ground. And after you've done everything to stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with their feet fitted, that comes with the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. And last but not least, take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Listen, the helmet in a battle, right, was used to protect the brain. He had injuries, right? So in the battleground, when he had this full armor on, the very last thing to go on, and the very most important thing, was that stinking helmet to protect the mind. So if you succumb to brain injury as a warrior, you'd be absolutely useless, right? But you know what? You are at war. You need to protect your mind from injury. You need a helmet on and be sure the enemy doesn't whisper defeat and fear and all that stuff in your mind the way he did the Israelites when they faced a bully. The Israelites thought they were doomed, and they were, until David showed up. Little David, right? Rest assured, in these perilous times, you are what you are, and you are where you are because you're the thought life. And that's where David comes in. David wasn't bigger or smarter than the enemy. That's obvious, right? He had an armor that he refused. He said, no, I'm going to be good. He had an armor, frankly, that no enemy on the planet can penetrate. And so do you, and so do I. Seemingly, the young David didn't hesitate to be the one to slay the giant. Well, why is that? First, he had an unshakable faith in the living God. Do you? And he was confident that his God was bigger than the biggest giant. Our God is bigger than anything you're seeing out there, guys, and it's not worth 1 minute of your thought or your mind or any of that process, is it? Because God is bigger than any giant. Something for all of us to remember at such a time as this. Next, David wasn't reckless. I mean, he didn't go out there half-cocked and just say, go like a loose cannon. He analyzed the situation, and frankly, he did it well. He already knew he was a marksman. He already knew his skill. He slingshot a few stones countless times to kill countless other enemies. I guess he thought that the size of the giant doesn't matter, right? It's how you fight the battles that matter. So no doubt David sized up that giant. But more than that, I'm thinking David sized up his armor too, knowing that the big bad giant could really be quick on his feet. No way somebody that big with 150 pounds of armor could be quick on his feet, and that, due to his size and the weight. But another thing, he shot Goliath in the head and killed him with one stone, right? No doubt considered that the small opening in Goliath's armor, that one little opening, so the giant, where he was going, David saw it and he went for the target. And let me tell you something. If you have even the smallest opening in your armor, in that helmet, right, your enemy's going to find a way in there too. And that's exactly what happened to Goliath. Spiritual slingshots are always precision too. David knew how to battle, how to lean upon the Lord. He knew he was meant to be victorious, and all those other things were just minor details to him. He didn't focus on the scary stuff, like how big the boogeyman is, right? He focused on how to win the war, and that's what you should be doing. That's what I'm to be doing all the time. We are at war, and you'll need to determine to be victorious or not. And yes, I said want to be, because it's a choice. You see, David wanted to be victorious, and he understood the importance of strategy. But so many people are out there in this crazy world of ours today, and they refuse to battle this war with the strategy and precision that's available to all of us. Instead, they're in places, basically. One, they're in the valley shouting out insults, trying to bully the world into submission. You know, they know everything going on. They know everything God's doing. They're talking about God's plans as if he's given them personal, exclusive instructions, and they're demanding their Saul to show up. Unfortunately, these warriors are just making a lot of noise, just like the giant. They can't win the battle that way. Or they're just like those Israelites, terrorized by the big bad wolf, frozen in fear, doing nothing, and believing they don't have a choice. You know what? The Goliath only fools himself, right? That's it. They huff and they puff. They beat their chest, and they try to put the fear of God into everybody who will listen. They have absolutely no power, and they have absolutely no speed. They have no strategy. They have no chance at all. If we learn to fight like David, that is, they don't have a chance. David didn't look at the scary outward things. He didn't focus on the problem. He didn't hesitate to stand tall for God. He wasn't lost for the mission, and he didn't question his victory. He knew it was coming. Is that the way you do battle today? And if not, isn't it time to be doing it? That's your spiritual shot in the arm. Now I'll go for a few tips of based on the same story of what you can be doing for your business. Number one, be bigger than your fears, folks. Come on. You know, twice a day for Goliath challenged the Israelites, demanding that one-on-one battle. Twice a day, this scary brute, terrorized them twice a day. And the Israelites were terrified. None of them would dare challenge Goliath. But after David heard about the reward for defeating the giant, he accepted the challenge for child's play. And guess what? This war that we're up against today, it is like child's play if we just fight it with the right tools. When David confronted Goliath, he did have a staff, he had a slingshot, and he had those 5 stones. Not to mention, he was so small compared to Goliath. But did that stop him? Not a chance. And no big in your life, or whatever that enemy is to you, has a chance either. Not long after the battle started, he pulled a slingshot back and put that stone in it, and he let it rip right into Goliath's forehead, into that tiny little opening where he knew he could defeat him. Remember, fear makes our challenges giant size. When a child and things you were scared of, they just look giant size. But that's all due to fear. And as a man thinketh, so is he. So if you focus on the size and the scary things, your fear will always win. You can't afford to do that right now in our history, guys. You can't afford to do that. You cannot focus on the size and let your fear win. The enemy to torment, to put those thoughts and to get that little opening in your armor that he knows can paralyze you too. The Israelites were smaller than their fear, and David was bigger than them. So what are you? If you're not like that, you'll end up settling for things that are less than your fears. And you'll be enslaved by your fears, what situation you're in, or what decision you need to make. Look at things logically, look at the facts, and get out of your head and start taking, action already. Number 2, size doesn't matter. It never did. In life, you're bound to come across some very big challenges. You got some small ones, got some big ones, right? And some of them are in that giant. But the size of the challenge or the problem or obstacle, whatever it is irrelevant. Why? Because that doesn't determine what's possible for you. You serve a big God, and all things are possible. The only thing that determines what's possible for you is you and your thought process and your belief system and whether or not you're armed. If size mattered to David, the way it did all those grown Israelite soldiers, right, he wouldn't have had the courage to fight that bully. David knew size didn't matter. It's heart, it's courage, and it's commitment that matters. You can apply the same principle and the same level of thinking to your life and the challenges you're facing. Think big and be bigger than the obstacle and act if it is possible for you not to fail. Listen, have some self-confidence, some conviction, and believe in yourself more than you believe those challenges that you're facing. And number 3 is make use of what you already have. Many people complain about so many things, what they don't have, why they're not having this, why they have all these problems, why they need that one more thing before they can get started, why not having that thing is holding them back. Man, we got excuse for everything. It's unbelievable. But the truth is, you have to make use of what you already got. That's to get what you want. That's the bottom line. Compared to the armor and the Goliath had, David, seemed insignificant, right? After all, he only had a sling, 5 stones, and a staff. So yet he made use of it, and it was more than enough to get the job done. He still defeated Goliath regardless of the comparison in weight, in strength, in armor, in weapons, and everything else. David didn't moan or whine, because of the differences, like all the other Israelites do. And I'm sure they were chatting it up. What are you, nuts? I'm not going down there with that big guy. He had kind of a so what attitude, left everybody in shock after defeating Goliath so effortlessly with nothing but a slingshot and stone. So stop making your own excuses. Do you want to succeed? Well, you improvise and use what you already have. You want to do things like a YouTube video, for instance. Well, record videos through your phone instead of complaining you don't have all the studio equipment and the right light. What you do, with the best product presentation, is that what you want, right? Watch tutorials on YouTube instead of moaning about everything you need yet. Stop making excuses, folks. You are equipped by the hand of God, and you already have been gifted, and you just need to get to work. You need to believe it's possible. The Israelites didn't believe it was possible, obviously. That's why they cowered down. If you were to rate their self-belief on a scale from 1 to 10, they're less than 0, no doubt about that. On the other hand, David's belief would have been a 10 plus. That's why it wasn't an issue for him to challenge Goliath. That's it. He wasn't an issue to take him down. And don't forget, David turned down, the offer for that armor. He said, forget about it. I don't need it. And you know why? Because he trusted God. So do you. Do you believe it's possible? Without a strong belief that what you're pursuing is possible, you're definitely going to fail. You'll quit on yourself before you even get there. If your fears are stronger than your self-belief and your faith, you've already shot yourself in the foot without even knowing it. Until you believe in yourself, other than the fear or the obstacle, you're going to continue to quit on yourself. And you know what? And the enemy's going to celebrate. Number 5 is don't underestimate your capabilities. It's always dangerous to underestimate yourself. When you underestimate yourself and your own capabilities, you end up achieving less, and frankly, you end up spitting in the face of God. He's already given you everything you need. But your enemy's going to continue to whisper in your ear all the days of your life. He's going to tell you lies and tell you what you can't do and tell you what to be afraid of, unless you take captive every thought. Judging on how, things looked back then, giant Goliath, compared to a small young David, you think Goliath was fine. You look on the surface of things and you think you got it figured out. But the outcome of the battle turned out to be a whole lot different than what the Israelites expected. David didn't underestimate his abilities. He had self-confidence, and he had lots of it because he never doubted the living God. He was smart enough to know that with him all things. He was smart enough to know that his strength and his abilities came from the living God. Remember, God is always looking for a willing heart. He's not looking for perfection. We're not going to reach perfection on this side of heaven. He's looking for that willing heart. So, you know what? When you're willing, he'll equip you. So, David, let David be your inspiration to be willing forward fearlessly, knowing that you've already got the armor of God around you, and believe in what you're doing. Stop underestimating yourself, because when you do that, you are underestimating God. It doesn't matter, again, if you're any walk of life, if you were a real estate broker, a personal trainer, a coach, or a student, you're capable of much more than you believe because you don't have the belief system. Something you just got to work on and stop giving up on yourself. If anything, you should be overestimating, because you'll end up giving and doing more than is expected, and you'll end up achieving more and reaching your potential in the process if you overestimate. Like Goliath, unfortunately, you're confident in your size or otherwise, your knowledge, your skill set, your abilities in a business, but you're standing in the valley shouting out, what you have and what you can do to help people, almost expecting that they're going to do like David and come down, from the mountain to the valley. They come to you based on your size or all your knowledge or whatever you have, right? It doesn't work that way. It didn't in the case of David, and it's certainly not going to do for you. So we've got to look at how, are you confident in your belief system about what's going on, all around you in America, about what's going on with the COVID-19, or are you sitting in that valley, out scary things in your attempt to bully a dark world, taking no productive action, not trusting the plans of the living God, or worse yet, believing you already know what they are. Listen, you remember Job, one of my favorite guys in the whole Bible, the most righteous man on the planet, got into trouble with God when he presumed to know the mind of God. Righteous man was taken to the woodshed when God said, "Who is this who darkens my counsel with words you don't understand?" I would suggest y'all stop that, right? That didn't turn out well for Job, and you might want to reconsider your approach in this battle. Goliath didn't accomplish much, and you won't either. If you're struggling and fighting, if you're fighting to accept God's ability to handle the mess around you and me, I'd recommend you'd read Job 38 through 40. Read it all the way through. That'll put God in perspective for you. Get him right in the right place again one more time. Some of you are a little like David. You already have the skill set. You remember it's already, a proven marksman, right? He didn't show up and wing it. He was already a proven marksman. Some of you are like that. You have the slingshot, and you have a few smooth stones to use. But you know what? You lack the courage. You don't believe God is bigger than the biggest challenges you see. You don't believe, he's with you at all if you're succumbing to that fear. Do you believe? And that's the difference that sets the Davids from the Goliaths. God has already gifted each one of us with unique gifts. Mine are mine and yours are yours. He created you, planted you in the womb of your mother for a specific purpose, and you have the gifts you need to fulfill it. He's already opened the door of opportunity. I don't believe anybody does, like this by accident. I think it was all a door open. It was ordained. So remember, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind and very unique gifts. So the only thing in your way is that, opening in your armor that's making room for lies. I see it every day. I counsel people and coach people every day. It's always everything, every thought of doubt, every thought of fear, every thought of defeat comes from a very dark place, my friends. It's not just a matter of you, getting a self-help book. You need to armor up, and you need to take captive every thought, coming very perilous times. And God's army needs to arm up. And you know what? The victory is going to be so beautiful for all the ones willing to do that. We need to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So, guys, it's never too late. Today's a new day. I have to work on these things every single day of my life to be sure that I take captive the thoughts and renew my mind. And if we do those things, we will be victorious over any giant we ever encounter in life. And that's it for me, Wade.
Man. Amazing, guys. I mean, what a great story. I love the story of David and Goliath. And there is no giant too big, Lynn. And as you just said, with God behind us, there is nothing that is too big. And thank you so much, honey. What a great message this morning, guys. As I told you, Miss Lynn has been a dear friend for years. You guys, she's an author, and I was just on Amazon again, just looking, guys, to look at the different books that she's written. And I know she hates talking about this, but I always like bringing it up because, guys, she needs to be supported in multiple ways for the messages that she brings to us. And she doesn't need to. God supplies all our desires. And she's living proof of that. And so I thank you so much, Lynn, for the message that you bring to us each and every day.
Oh, thank you, my friend. It's an honor for me to serve the King. And if there's this one person whose life has changed or, helped set them straight for the journey, what a blessing that is. So thank you.
Amen. That is so good. All right, guys, let's just talk to Lynn a second about her books. If you don't know who Lynn is, and there's quite a few new people on here, so I love that. And so Lynn is, as I said at the start, she's an author, and she has 4 books out, or is the 5th one?
No, it's not out yet, just 4. Mm-hmm.
All right, very good. So let's start right off, right? We got Toilets, Taps, and Trash, and that is a #1 seller, right? Bestseller list.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. Great tool for your business. It really is. And just so you know, guys, listen, how do I put this? I'm much more humble than some of you might think. But that book, although it's benefited my business tremendously, you can't tell that I'm in a business. I'm not going to steal people from that book. It's out there for you and for me, and it's just very straightforward about, how the journey of water used to be and how it is today. And I really think you would enjoy it if you take a look at it. Some people buy it and give away and, whatever you want to do. But I just want you to know that, it's not self-serving. I would say on a book I would say the average that I make on an Amazon book per sale, less than $1. So I try to keep it priced where you guys can go on with it and bulk up on it. So even though that's why I always cringe when Wade brings it up. It's like, oh gosh, I don't want to try to hustle people for books. I'm not, And I just pray that whatever I do, I definitely do it unto the Lord, and I just pray it blesses you. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, that is so good, and you're right. I know you don't hustle for books, and I bring it up because, guys, it is a great tool for our business. I mean, nothing else. It's a great tool for our business, and that's number one: toilets, taps, and trash. Right? Walking on the water. Another amazing book by Lynn, 12 Steps for Climbing Out of the Dark Place, guys. A lot of people are really in a dark place right now, and that is just another tremendous book out there for the people. And then Breaking the Chains. Guys, I'm telling you, these books are designed for you because I know, Lynn, these are true life. This is the heart of God speaking through this woman right now. So for the love of God, break the chains. Lynn, I know you don't bring yourself up much, but this is just the start of who this woman is, right, guys? You just heard a little piece right now, a little piece this morning, but honestly, these books really start telling the heart of the Lord through Lynn. I can tell you that right now.
Thank you so much. Wow, that's humbling. Thank you. Yeah, it's guys, it's really cool, like Wade said in the beginning of the call, that for me, I've got my priorities are straight. I put God first above everything, above my children, my grandchildren, my wallet, my everything. God is first. And the next is it's my first mission field, and now it's there's another generation of little ones that I hope to influence into the Lord, like I did for my own children, right? So my family, first it's God, then it's my family, and then it's my business. Well, when you keep it like that, you can't help but talk about your faith to your family, right? Because God is first. And that you can't help but have your faith filter into your business. And I believe with everything within me that God gives his people a mission field in their workplace. This is it, okay? This is a place we spend most of our time. It's a place we have the most influence over people, and it's a place where he really should be. We should do like this and bring faith into the workplace so that we can influence more people. So that's why, people get confused over, what does Lynn do and what's she all about? Does she even work? Oh, I work really hard, trust me. It's just that I work putting God first. And when you put him first, you know what happens? It just comes to you. It's a beautiful thing.
That is so good. And then also we have the Living Waters Farm, and guys, she's coming to you live right now. It's from her Living Waters Farm, which is a special place in my heart, special place in many people's hearts. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it is a special, guys. It sounds silly, and it sounds almost materialistic. I mean, it's beautiful here. But I believe it's anointed. And, I prayed over every inch of this farmhouse. I pray over every single foot of the 22 acres. And I pray that God would be glorified here, no matter he comes first, and that he be glorified. And so I don't feel like it belongs to me. I know it's God's farm. And I think when people show up here, that's what they feel too. That they just feel like they feel peace, they feel God. It's not a weird kind of thing. It's just because you are truly standing on holy ground. This is not Lingard. It belongs to all of us. It's God's farm. And so it is special. I'm sad again, no retreat this year. And I mean, I tried my flesh was in all over that place, but I knew that my son, they postponed their wedding last October for this October, and so here we are, and the dates can't make it both happen. I can't, be a part of that beautiful celebration and entertain house guests from out of town and do an event. So even though I like to think I'm all that. But we're going to be doing a couple of things. Maybe we'll do a smaller event in the spring, just kind of break up the time a little bit because I miss you guys and hole in my heart not being able to gather together here. But, we'll definitely be on for next year, and I think we'll probably do some small things in between. We got church starting here. That's a pretty, wonderful thing. It was actually supposed to have gone ahead and started, but with COVID and the weird restrictions and all that nonsense, I just sat back and waited on God. So we do have a church starting here, and we're actually going to be in the barn, thanks to God and to the Louisiana Power Team. We can actually do that in a barn. So you see, it's all about that. Now, having said that, do you think there's any doubt that when strangers come into the church and they're giving glory to God, to get to know each other and knowing about life, don't you think maybe somebody in there will eventually look at my business? Of course they will. And then when I'm talking to people in my business and they see my heart and they see my compassion, don't you think I'm going to bring up faith? And so they might know the God I know? Of course I do. So it all fits together, Wade.
Oh, man.
It all.
That is so good. You're so right. Hey, we have a hand up. Let's go to Deborah in Florida. Good morning, Deborah. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Wade. Thank you for taking my call. And Lynn, I just want to say that you truly are anointed and truly gifted. And I just want to say thank you and to all those that have not, I'm sorry, but I just want to say to all those that have not read Toilets, Taps, and however it's said, Toilets, Taps, and Trash. Am I saying it right? There you go. Mm-hmm. I read that this week. I've had it, along with some of the other books, but I just haven't been able to get around to it. But it is maybe sit down and read, but It is phenomenal, especially for somebody who doesn't want to get into a lot of science, but needs to know why this water is so incredibly important. God bless you, girl. You have just opened up so many eyes, and that book's going out to a lot of people. So I just want to give a shout out to you for everything you do. Just say thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, thank you so much. The servant, if we're humble, we don't need accolades. I mean, I just need to hear well done one day, right? We don't need accolades. But it's always a blessing to hear that you're being a blessing. So it just kind of encourages me in my journey. So for that so much. And I don't know, with toilets, taps, and trash, which, by the way, only an auctioneer can swing that out fast, right, Wade? we can say that quickly. Other people get tongue-tied on it. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check after this call, go in to see what the price is on that thing, and if it's not set right, I'll probably $4.99 or something. So if people want to go in and buy that in bulk, it will be the time to do it. So you have one shipping, and you can order multiple copies if you want. I'll check that after the call.
Oh, that's excellent. Very good. Go ahead, Deborah.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey. Love you.
Yeah. All right, let's go to our friend Michael in South Carolina. Good. How are you?
I'm just fantastic, Wade, and thank you, Wade, and thank you, Miss Lynn. Your messages are always inspiring to me, and I have the black and blue marks on my ankles to prove it, and especially with this message today, which I think is kind of a continuation from Sunday's Front Porch Ministry. And mm-hmm. We might want to talk about that a little bit, Wade, too, because she does a beautiful Sunday evening Front Porch Ministry at 7 p.m. mm-hmm. as I talk about every Friday. She is right about the farm. If you have never been there, and I've been fortunate enough to be there on several occasions, and there is a peace and contentment at that farm that I can guarantee you will never feel anywhere else but there. And it's just like life flows there, and it's all relaxing, and it's all you can feel God's presence when you are at the farm. And she does a beautiful, beautiful job with that. And I know you're just a messenger, and you say that all the time, but you're our mm-hmm. messenger that keeps us on our toes and tells us point blank, this is what you need to hear. You need to know this. This is what he needed a woodshed over, and told me I need to give this message. And so now it's up to you to take it and go from there. And so I thank you for all those blessings that you give each and every one of us every time that you're on. So thank you very much, Lynn.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. You're encouraging. And, from being, on the Front Porch Church call, that whatever you guys hear from me is something God's just been dealing with me on. Okay, so I don't just like come up with a topic that, yeah, they all need to hear this one. You know, in this particular one with David and Goliath, I mean, you cannot, guys, you are lying to yourself. I think you can fill yourself up with what's going on in this world, from the vaccines to the mandates to whatever it is. You cannot listen to that and be a David. Okay, so I just went through that myself, and some of you probably on this call have called me and did you hear about this? And I shut them down. I'm not even nice. I can't listen to it. I can't hear it because I'm serving the living God, and I've got my armor on. So yeah, it is something that it's always he's going to be dealing with me on. But I just recently had a difficult conversation with someone, trying to counsel her in a very, very delicate, difficult situation. I just spoke some wisdom to her, and she said, I can't believe you would say that. And I said, but I love you enough to speak the truth. And so, guys, everybody out there, I sincerely love you. I pray for you, and I don't even know who's on the call. But I love you enough to speak the truth. And my desire is always that it would, your heart, that's my first goal, right? But also that you'd see the correlation for your business. You are a David. Just that you cannot have any opening in that helmet, in your armor, to be defeated, because you're victorious already.
That's so good. So good. Awesome. All right, guys. Lynn, how can people get your information? How can we reach out and get these books? How can we reach out and get information on the farm and all that?
Really, guys, the best way is to go to my website, and that is livinglarger.life. Should be easy to remember. livinglarger.life. You can get, if you click on the books at the top there, it'll take you to Amazon directly. If you can see whatever I have going on here at the farm there. And by the way, I told you guys we have a ladies' Bible study coming out. It actually is out, but y'all can't see it. It's out to a few select women. And I'm rolling it out with them, and I'll tell you why, because it speaks the truth, and it's going to be a controversial study. So I kind of wanted to go out with a few women first, but you'll see it announced on there. It's free, so it's just easier for me to manage everything I do through one portal, and that's my website. So you can go there, contact me. You can click the contact button, and everything is there, livinglarger.life.
It's so good. The library's there. The books are there. Everything's there.
Yep.
The events are. Your blog is going. I love it.
Everything's there. Mm-hmm.
Yes, excellent. Man, it's so good. Well, Lynn, it is always an honor, such a privilege to have you on. You bring such words of wisdom, and I thank you for the woman that you are of God. And I thank you for your prayers, because your prayers avail much. I'm telling you guys, when this woman starts praying, mountains start moving or shaking.
Yeah, they shake like the Israelites, right? Yeah. Yeah, they do. I mean, if anybody out there's ever seen War Room, then that's the way I pray. It would be a little scary for some of you, but when I'm doing battle, that's the way I pray. And I sincerely pray for you all, Wade, Gina, all of you, every day. I really do. And so it's always an honor for me, and there could be no greater blessing than to be a blessing. So thank you all.
So good. Thank you so much, Miss Lynn. All right, guys, I'm going to open up the call for everybody to thank Lynn. Appreciate you, Lynn. We keep you in our prayers also.
Appreciate you, too. Thank you.
Do that. So here we go, guys. Everybody give Miss Lynn. Yeah.
Thank you.